In the last few hours, the central Philippines has been battered by the devastating Typhoon Tino, known internationally as Kaliji, leaving behind a landscape of destruction and emergency that has tested the response capacity of local authorities. The island province of Palawan was the direct epicenter of the storm, suffering multiple landfalls and being subjected to the highest wind warnings as the typhoon swept through its northern regions. The first warnings from PAGASA, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, were issued late Tuesday, November 4th, indicating that Palawan would face typhoon-force winds of 118 to 184 kilometers per hour, as well as storm surges of up to 3 meters, posing a direct threat to life and property in the region. Palawan Governor Amy Alvarez immediately implemented preventative and forced evacuations in 14 municipalities in the northern part of the province, moving more than 1,000 families, equivalent to over 3,000 people, to safe shelters. This proactive measure was crucial in preventing casualties during Typhoon Tino's passage. The typhoon first made landfall on Q and Makisay Islands around 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, continuing its path north across mainland Palawan, making landfall again in El Nido. Local authorities activated emergency operations centers and coordinated with the Coast Guard to ensure the safety of evacuees and alert coastal communities. As Tino moved inland, rainfall intensified, with estimates of 100 to 200 millimeters in inland areas, increasing the risk of localized flooding and landslides in vulnerable areas. Severe conditions forced the suspension of maritime travel, leaving thousands of passengers stranded on the islands. In Roxas, the local administration implemented a strict risk assessment and evacuation plan, prioritizing the safety of residents in coastal and flood-prone areas. Evacuation centers filled up quickly, reflecting the effectiveness of preventative measures and the preparedness of the population. The entire northern part of Palawan remained on high alert, with sustained winds and gusts capable of toppling light structures, disrupting transportation, and endangering the lives of those who remained in exposed areas. Rescue and relief operations continued throughout the night and early morning. The typhoon's departure into the western Philippine Sea and subsequently toward Vietnam did not signify the end of the emergency in Palawan, where teams began assessing damage to homes, infrastructure, and agriculture, as well as the gradual restoration of electricity and communications. In the Visayas, the impact of Tino was even more devastating. The central region, including Cebu province, became the epicenter of the tragedy, with torrential rains that surpassed historical records and caused massive flooding, sweeping away vehicles, homes, and public infrastructure. Cebu province reported at least 49 confirmed deaths, according to the Office of Civil Defense, although local reports suggest the actual death toll could exceed 100. The municipalities of Liloan, Compostela, Mando City, Cebu City, and Talisi City faced unprecedented flooding, with rivers overflowing and streets transformed into raging torrents. In Liloan, the storm triggered deadly flash floods. 183 millimeters of rain fell in just 24 hours, overwhelming local drainage systems and sweeping away cars, trucks, and homes. Videos showed residents climbing onto rooftops to survive as their homes were engulfed by the water. Compostela and Mando City also suffered severe flooding, with entire neighborhoods submerged in muddy waters that blocked roads and created chaos. Rescue operations were hampered by blocked access and the scale of the disaster. Talisi City experienced widespread damage to homes and public services, while residents struggled to stay safe and reach temporary shelters. The magnitude of the torrential rain was a key factor in the destruction seen throughout the province. In Bohol, at least one person was killed by a falling tree, while the region faced widespread flooding and power outages. Humanitarian aid coordination began immediately to assist those affected and restore essential services. The western Visayas also suffered severe impacts. More than 219,000 people were displaced and sought refuge in evacuation centers due to flooding and landslides in Iloilo City, Sagri City, and San Lorenzo in Guimaras. On Negros Island, the city of Canlaon reported flash floods and volcanic mudflows, lahars, from Mount Canlaon, leaving at least 12 dead and several missing. The region faced a double blow: extreme rainfall and persistent geological hazards. The provinces of Aklan and Antique reported significant flooding, power outages, and wind damage, with at least one fatality in Aklan. The scale of the disaster tested regional response capacity and coordination. In the eastern Visayas, southern Leyte was directly impacted in the town of Salcedo, where more than a month's worth of rain fell in just 24 hours. The combination of extreme rainfall and rugged terrain triggered flash floods and landslides, isolating communities. The Coast Guard and local agencies worked to restore transportation and deliver aid, facing blocked roads and communities cut off by flooding and landslides. Rescue and relief operations continued for several days after Tino passed through. In total, some 706,000 people were affected in the Visayas, facing the loss of homes, crops, and basic services. The scale of the emergency underscores the region's vulnerability to extreme weather events. Climate change has been identified by experts as a factor that intensifies storms and rainfall in the Philippines, increasing risks for densely populated and vulnerable areas. The affected communities now face the arduous task of recovery, while local authorities and humanitarian organizations coordinate efforts to address immediate needs for shelter, food, and medical care. In Roxas and other communities in northern Palawan, the effectiveness of preventative evacuations has been highlighted as a key factor in avoiding casualties, although infrastructure suffered considerable damage from winds and rain. The restoration of power lines and communication services is underway, with technicians working to normalize daily life while the population adapts to post-typhoon conditions. Farmers in Palawan and the Visayas face significant losses, with flooded crops that could affect local food security in the coming weeks. In El Nido, Taytay, and the surrounding islands, strong winds and heavy rains caused roofs to be torn off and damaged homes made of lightweight materials, forcing the reinforcement of temporary shelters. Storm surges in coastal areas posed a continued risk, with waves up to 3 meters high affecting boats, docks, and riverside communities, even after the typhoon's core had passed. Search and rescue efforts continue, especially in areas where people were cut off or trapped by floodwaters and debris, while authorities monitor the risk of further rainfall. Typhoon Tino left a legacy of destruction that extends far beyond infrastructure. Hundreds of families have lost homes, belongings, and livelihoods, facing a prolonged and challenging recovery process. Coordination among local agencies, the Coast Guard, and humanitarian organizations has been vital to minimizing the number of casualties and ensuring the delivery of aid to isolated communities.